All right. Good day to you. My name is Fred Oakman, and as always, with me today is Mr. Jake Peters. We are PS This Is Awesome, PlayStation-centered video game podcast. This is a show where we share our feelings about the current state of the video gaming world. Before we get on with the show, I'd like to invite you all to subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit us on Twitter and Tumblr. If you want to find us and make fun of our trophy list on the PSN, you can find me at anchorless_81 and Mr. Jake Peters at jakesaw01. Today, we're going to talk a bit about the state of play for Ghost of Tsushima, the announcement of the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 remaster coming in September 4th, 2020, the Unreal Engine 5 debut, which happened this past week. And if we have time, we're going to discuss which 5 games each of us would bring with us if we were going to be stranded on an island indefinitely. Jake, how you doing today?
Okay.
Just okay?
Yeah, it was a long night, so I didn't get much sleep last night. Struggled a little bit this morning.
Yeah, that sucks. It makes things tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I don't know. We're going to have a good show today. I think we have a lot to talk about. Some stuff went down this past week. I don't know. What have you, are you playing anything new right now? I can say I finished the second episode of Life is Strange, but that's really all I've really dipped my toes in. That and a little more Modern Warfare with my brother-in-law. Are you playing anything different, or do you want to get right into the show topics?
I haven't really played anything different other than, I've been playing this game a little bit because I built that PC. Yeah. I've been playing this game a little bit on my PC called Stellaris. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. I don't know if they're doing it, if they did a PS4 port for it or not. It's like an RTS kind of game. Let's see, PS4.
Yeah, I've never.
Apparently it is, which I don't fucking understand how the hell you could play this game on PS4. It's like it's like a super hardcore, like real-time strategy game. It's
Stellaris, like Solaris.
Stellaris, like star. Sorry, Stellaris. It's like if you've ever played like Civilization or something like that. It's kind of like that, but yeah, just like way crazy. You know, you're essentially you've got you're it's all in space, so you're like trying to expand across the galaxy, and you start out and you pick a race or whatever, and then obviously that has certain abilities or whatever, and you have a home system, and you have to basically manage resources and politics and trade routes and try and expand and explore and research science and battle other enemies or whatever that you come across, other races if you need to, or you can choose like diplomatic options. It's fucking crazy. Like, it's way too much. Because I really enjoy playing. One of the things I do like playing on PC is games like that, where it's a
little easier with a mouse to play those kind of games.
Yeah, and it's not like it's not
sorry about that.
What do I want to say? It's not like really like fast paced. Like I love StarCraft and all that kind of stuff where it's really fast paced or whatever. But I also appreciate a game like Civilization or Age of Empires or something like that, where you can just kind of slow it down and do it at your own pace. And they're like turns, and you can pause things, and it kind of gives you something to. It's just, I don't know. It's interesting to me. I don't know. The problem I'm having with it, though, is that it's so fucking complicated. Like, there's so much you can do, about how you manage everything. I don't even know really how to describe it. It's just really hard to understand what I'm doing. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll Google some tutorials on how to play this game. And so I Googled like a tutorial on how to do it. And it was like, there was like the first video I found was like an hour-long video on just deciding what race you want to play as. It's like,
yeah, forget that, man. I don't have time for stuff like that.
I know. I don't have time for it either, but it's like something that I find, I wish I could just, there was either a stupid mode where it was like they just chopped out a bunch of shit that like isn't really critical to the core experience, or if like somehow I could just, like the Matrix style, just download all the information on how to play it into my brain. Because if I knew how to play the game and I didn't have to learn it, I think I'd have a lot of fun playing it. It's just one of those things where the learning curve is so bad that.
Well, that was like Don't Starve. Remember Don't Starve?
Yeah, Don't Starve was kind of like that too. I mean,
real ambiguous.
The biggest thing about Don't Starve was a lot of it was that they just, it's kind of like Minecraft. You just kind of have to figure out what things go together. Right. Ultimately, you can look all that stuff up and it makes it a lot easier. But the biggest problem I had with Don't Starve was that it was really hard. Like once you got past a certain point, it was just really hard to stay alive. And because your character would like go crazy and stuff, like that game was just fucking bonkers. I wish they had a mode that was not permadeath. That's another game that I would really love. Yeah, it's like Minecraft is a perfect example of a game like that is not permadeath. So like, I would love to have a game like Don't Starve where it's just like, hey, you died, you can kind of keep going about your business and doing your thing, but unfortunately, that's not the way those games are meant to be played. So, I've been playing a little bit of that Stellaris thing. It's just the only reason I'm even playing it is because there's like a free weekend for it on Steam right now.
I see.
So I'm probably like, I don't even know if I'm even gonna. I think it's like $10 or something like that. It's not super expensive, but I don't know that I'll buy it just because I just don't know if I have the time to put into. Not even necessarily mastering it, but just like feel comfortable even playing the game. But
right, you kind of need to know how to play a game to enjoy it, like to understand the mechanics of a game and what does what and what the goal is or how to get to do what you're trying to do. The trouble with a lot of those games is, like you're indicating, is that they kind of just say, okay, as soon as your feet touch the ground, or in this game, it sounds like it's more of like a sim kind of game, and that's the trouble I had with City Skyline. I powered that game up. It was one of the PS Plus games. And instantly I was just like, there's so much to this game. Like it's actually, a lot of people had problems. A lot of people had issue with getting 2 simulation games during the quarantine. But to be quite honest, that's exactly the kind of game I feel like I would want to play. If that makes any sense, because you can sit and cultivate something and watch something grow or do something like that. And it kind of offers you the opportunity to do kind of, it's like growing a garden. You can build a civilization, you can make a city, you can build a farm. That kind of thing seemed really interesting to me. I don't know, but I'm also, are you still on the line, Jake?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I keep hearing a weird popping noise and I have no idea what it is.
I think it's on your end.
I don't know what it would be, unless my pop filter is messing up. But anyways, yeah. So those games are kind of weird like that, where, it looks like that City Skyline game looks like a really cool game. I got into it, I started building my city, and then all of a sudden, all of the properties I had trash piling up outside of them. They all had roads leading to them. And it just seemed like the issue was the garbage collection couldn't get to these properties. And I was like, well, I'm not going to dismantle and doze everything I spent the last 4 hours building in this game just so that they can have their trash picked up. And it was like really frustrating because once you start kind of get your feet wet and you get something established, they always throw a curveball at you where it's like, well, had I known this was going to be something I had to mitigate to start with, then I could have done that. But the issue with games like that is like they never tell you exactly everything up front and what's going to come. So it makes it kind of hard to work with a game like that. But I did find City Skylines pretty cool and way more in depth than I expected. I used to play SimCity 2000 as a kid back in the year 2000, as Conan O'Brien would say. But I used to play City, and I liked the fact that you had to run water supply to all of your different properties and all the different locations. Always keep the industrial areas away from the residential zones. Keep, the commercial zones have to be kind of close, the highway system, the structures. Then you start getting the upgrades where you can put a library, that stuff's always kind of fun. And I kind of enjoyed playing it, to be honest. But as soon as the trash started piling up and I learned that there was no way to fix that short of dozing it and putting more roads in, I was like, I'm not dozing this city I spent all this time on. That's ridiculous. Go ahead. Anyways.
Yeah, no, it's it's just one of those games where, like you said, I really enjoy that type of stuff where you can just kind of go in and you're just kind of cultivating something, and you can kind of, it's almost like,
is that the appeal of Minecraft for people?
Well, yeah, Minecraft, there's two modes in Minecraft. There's the survival mode and then there's the creative mode. The people that typically do all the really wild shit do it in the creative mode because you don't have to gather materials. You just have everything, right? And you don't have to worry about things trying to kill you. You just kind of build stuff. But, I would love... I was just looking a little bit at this Stellaris game, like not actually playing it, but just like looking a little bit about it. And it's like everybody loves it. Yeah. And I don't know if that's just from like the perspective of people that like those kinds of games, or if it's just generally what
just
people just
really well received.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't have a great Metacritic score. It's like right around an 8, but
interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
This talk may play into games that you would bring on with you to an island. This idea of a sim game.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm curious to hear the games that you would pick. Mm-hmm. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about the state of play. Ghost of Tsushima. Sony came out. We haven't had a state of play for a really long time, right? And people are wondering, well, what is Sony doing with the PS5? They haven't really answered back to any of Xbox Series X stuff. They haven't really come out and said anything. So everybody's kind of curious about what's going on. And we got hit in the side of the face with a new state of play for Sucker Punch's latest game, Ghost of Tsushima, which is coming out in, I believe it's July. I didn't write down the date here, but if you guys watch the state of play, it's on there. I actually put up a reaction video up on our YouTube channel for this. Bear in mind that it was the first kind of video I did like that, so the audio is a little screwed up on my part, but please go give it a watch if you're curious more about my opinions of Ghost of Tsushima. But I am curious to hear what you have to say about it, Jake, and to see if any of your sentiments about it, just based on this, are echo kind of how I feel about it. So what'd you think? You just watched it, right?
Yeah. So funny thing about this video is that, and the game looks great and we'll talk about that, but within the first 2 minutes of watching the video, I had this what the fuck moment with this game where I was like, what do you mean they're picking stuff up with the R2 button? I'm like, why the fuck? So like now I'm all concerned that the controls in this game are going to be bizarro weird because you don't fucking use R2 to mount your horse. You don't use R2 to pick up resources off the ground. Why would they make that the control?
Well, what's funny is, dude, I didn't even catch that, but go ahead. Keep going.
I don't know. Maybe it's just, I don't know why I would even notice something like that either, but it's just like, I saw that and I'm like, what the, like you're used to triangle or square or even, X or something like that. But like, I'm watching this and I'm like, if that's the control scheme, like if they're using a really random button for something totally innocuous and standard across all games of this type, what is the rest of the control scheme going to be like? And it could be, that they've got some, because of the way that because they didn't, one of the things they didn't talk about, they showed the combat, but they didn't really talk about how it's controlled. So it could be that the combat is really, fresh as far as the way it controls and like how you actually do the moves. And, so I don't know. I mean, it could play into that or whatever. And maybe there'll be a way in the game where you can kind of change the controls around to the way you like them. It's just, that's at this point in my life, I like the controls being ubiquitous across all of these types of games because it means I don't have to because think about how many times you play, I don't know, maybe I'm just getting older or whatever, but I just hate going to play a game and it's like, I'm used to controlling the game like this. And then I go to play another game and it controls completely differently. And then I'm fucking up all the time when I'm playing it because the controls are weird or I die because I accidentally threw a grenade at my feet or something like that when I actually meant to like pull up my sights, or like just like weird shit like that. I think it's stupid. It's like, I get, you want to make this splash and like be the next innovative controls designer or whatever, but it's like first person shooter controls have pretty much not changed since Halo, other than a few minor tweaks. Or like the first console Call of Duties, and like a lot of these, action adventure games, like the controls have been the same forever. I mean, it's kind of like, now there is a
The Last of Us kind of broke the rules a little bit.
A little bit. Yeah. I mean, I haven't played The Last of Us in a long time, so I don't really remember the controls.
Like you use L1 to run. And it's just like, what?
Yeah, that's weird. And like Uncharted, they did the same shit, like making L1 the reload button. And that was a little bit tough for me to get used to at first. Now I eventually got used to it, and then, didn't have any problems with it. But, I don't know. It seems like going on a little long about this topic, but it's like
about the R2 picking up something.
But it's like,
well, your concern is that the controls maybe aren't going to be as conventional as they are with most games, right? So now you're a little worried that like maybe it's going to control like the first Last Guardian or the first Shadow of the Colossus or something.
Yeah, and it's just like, I don't know. I like, maybe this is just me being grumpy, but it's like, there's a specific feeling you get. Like whenever I go pick something up, it's like I just tap a button, right?
Right.
And then, but the R2 and L2 buttons, they're not like tappable. They have a lot of play and travel. So like the ergonomics of it, like the feeling of it, I'm afraid is going to be weird. Like, like when you're just walking by something, you just tap square and it like picks it up, as opposed to like, Watch
it be a quick time event every time you pick something up. Like you can half press the R2 button, you'll start leaning over, and then you can let it go to stand back up. That'd be so weird. What if they do some weird stuff like that? I mean, it's super possible.
It is, but that sounds like some gimmicky shit they would do at the beginning of a console cycle, not like the last game on a console.
But not at the end of one.
I don't know. So I guess I'm done on my R2 rant, but
no, man, you're good. So
yeah, but it was interesting.
The first thing they get into on the video is I think how you navigate around the world. And one of the things, without giving my full opinion of it, one of the things that I noticed right from the get-go is that there's really not much on the video that they showed, at least there's really not much of a HUD at all.
Yeah, and that's cool. I like that they're doing a lot of that. Like The Last of Us kind of did that too, where it's like your HUD just kind of disappears until it's necessary. And it makes exploration games much more. I think The Witcher may have been similar. I don't. I know
remember. The Division does that. You have an option to have the Division mini map and stuff pop up only when it knows or feels that it's going to be necessary. It's weird. Like your ammo count and stuff just disappears until you actually go into a battle.
I think it does a lot for the immersion of the game.
What'd you think of being guided by the wind and like the little animals that show you where to go and stuff?
I thought it was cool. I mean, I think I'll be honest, I was not really all that interested in, I mean, it's not like I wasn't interested in the game. It was just like, it wasn't something that I was like actively excited about coming out. I was like, I knew I was going to probably play it, but it was something I was like, really looking forward to. But like after seeing the game and like the visuals as he's like kind of walking around the world and stuff,
really pretty game.
I'm excited to play it if for nothing else, just to kind of explore around the world. It could be one of those games where, you just kind of get lost in the world, and that's kind of interesting, kind of like a Witcher or something like that.
Well, before Red Dead Redemption 2 came out, I think that The Witcher nailed exploration really well in a video game in that the forests felt like forests. The wind would blow the trees and the storms and the grass, and it would whip around. And I really got, and I said this on the video I did, but with the horse, whistling for the horse, and even how far out the camera, kind of the way I can't stand that popping sound. Sorry guys, if you guys are hearing that. The way that the camera is zooming in on the horse when you're riding the horse. It felt very, and looked, I can't say felt because I didn't play it, but it looked very much like they took a lot of notes off of The Witcher 3. The Wild Hunt, like the forest, the storms, the wind throwing everything around. Because it's still, The Witcher 3 holds up graphically, man. And they did a lot of stuff where the size and the vastness of forest when you got in them, like, you guys know I love The Witcher 3, but fighting the, what the heck is that thing called? The big forest devil thing. It looks like a big tree that walks around. I forget what it's called. Anyways, when you're in those woods, like you actually lose your sense of direction. But every tree, like you can still get around the trees and walk through them, and like you feel like you're in a forest. And before Red Dead Redemption 2 came out, I think that The Witcher nailed the forest really well. Red Dead does it well as well. But I was getting a lot of Witcher 3 exploration vibes from this game because they have like the camp. Oh, they do in Red Dead 2, I guess, as well. But they have like the fires in the distance. They have the smoke pillows. They have different things that kind of lead you. You know, you'll see like a cabin in the distance. You know, I want to go see what that's about. And you go there, and then, you know, maybe there's a witch that lives there that gives you a side quest or something. Or in Red Dead, you go to a cabin, you hear people inside drinking and carrying on, and you get like some funny dialogue or something. Or I don't know. I like the idea of that. I'm glad they took that approach. But I'm not sure about the animals leading you. I don't know if that is consistent with folklore or, you know, old Japanese tales of, you know, I know that you always heard like you're being guided by the wind. Like that's something I've heard, but being led by foxes or being led by birds, it almost seems a little Disney to me to a degree, but I think it's a neat idea. I think it's a really neat idea. It just makes people who play the game, they're going to have to be more observant about their environment and the animals and stuff. That's kind of neat, but I don't know.
It seems like they pulled most of this stuff out of, you know, Japanese history and legend. So I imagine that it's probably all rooted in that, you know.
Yeah, I would think so too.
But I kind of get what you're saying. I don't really have an opinion one way or the other about it. I mean, it's just like,
it's fine.
What's the vehicle for you finding this hidden piece of, you know,
it would be
whatever.
Cool if you could have like a pet fox or something. And I think I heard or listened somewhere else where someone was like, I guarantee we get a raccoon that looks like Sly Cooper or something. That has like a mask, like Sly, just as an Easter egg or something, and that would be kind of cool, actually, if they're going to do that. But another thing, man, something that I wasn't sure about, like the game didn't seem to have much verticality, short of like the mountains and all of that stuff. And there was a scene where they were showing combat, and the guy kind of like got up on top of, you know, he had to blow up a cask of black powder or blow whatever. But the controls at that point seemed very much like Assassin's Creed, where you just automatically parkour.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they don't go into it, so you don't really know. I mean,
you don't know how it controls.
You don't know if he's, you know, actually pressing the jump button to jump up on those things,
just holding down L2 and running,
or if he's just holding a button down and running, which, you know, ultimately doesn't really matter to me. It just depends on, you know. I'm more concerned with like the I don't know. I guess the combat type controls and, you know,
yeah, they didn't go into that.
They didn't talk about like, they talk about, you know, obviously when he's playing as the same, because there's two combat sections, one where he's playing as a samurai and one where he's playing as a ghost. And the samurai one, you know, seems like it's very, the combat is a little bit more methodical. Yeah. Where it's just, you know, you're doing a lot of thinking and you're managing the, you know, the enemies and how they attack you, and you're blocking arrows and you're changing your stance to counter different types of enemy attacks and all that kind of stuff.
It's more shameless fighting, right? Like you're not trying to stealth. Like you're like, hey, I'm a samurai. I'm coming over here and I'm going to mix shit up with you guys because I don't agree with what you're doing. And it seems like the ghost stuff is like more of like, I'm going to jump down and assassinate. I'm going to distract people. I'm going to stealth kill. And I don't know if that's associated with the ghost part. It's both the same character in the game. I don't know. It just seems really, really weird and interesting to me that it's almost like they try to build a dichotomy between the samurai character and the Ghost of Tsushima, which is who I think you eventually become, from what I can gather.
It kind of leads me to believe that they might end up having some kind of
leveling system,
like a morality system, kind of like Fable or Mass Effect or something like that, where it's like, depending on how you play the game, you know, if you stick to the samurai path and you do things honorably and stuff, it might actually change the way that the game plays or even the story outcome. Where it's like, you know, you play as the ghost and you're just literally, you know, assassinating people and not fighting honorably and, you know, bringing shame to your people and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's possible that, you know, the story will change based on how you play. Or it could just be, what class do you want to be? Do you want to be the fucking tank, or do you want to be the, you know, the thief or whatever, the stealth guy?
Right. Right. How do you want to approach it? Yeah.
They didn't really go into that part of it. You know, the video is 18 minutes long, and they didn't, you know, and it seems like they covered a lot, but they didn't really cover a lot.
Well, they did talk about photo mode, right? Which is fine. And they talked about the Japanese voice, overdubs, which I don't know if they're overdubs or if that's the way they actually recorded all the audio and then the English is overdubbed. I don't know. I'd like to see how the mouths move to the Japanese audio. Like, do they sync up, or is it like a Japanese movie that translates over? Like, you know, they do voiceovers for Japanese movies and old movies like that, where like it's some white dude just being like, I will attack you with my sword. And then the mouth doesn't match up because the guy's actually speaking in Japanese. So like, or does it change depending on the dialogue that you pick? Because I kind of like the idea of putting it in the Japanese dialogue and having subtitles. But if the mouth doesn't match what you're hearing, that's going to drive me nuts.
That's it was almost certainly recorded in English. I mean, it's an American studio. You know, 95% of the people that play this game are going to play it in English. So
you think that's something you can program though? Like if we're using this, like the system maybe counts the syllables and just moves the mouth accordingly. Is that how that works?
No, they motion capture all that. All right. So they would have to motion capture two completely different audio tracks. Yeah. And then, you know, basically if you picked the Japanese track, it would swap out this animation for all of the, you know, speaking characters throughout like all the cinematic scenes or whatever, which probably isn't that big of a deal for them to do. It's just, you know, probably expensive for something
work and
that
probably something most people aren't going to use.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I think it would be really cool for them to
have it all in Japanese and have the mouth match the Japanese voices.
Because, like, for example, I've been playing Final Fantasy VII Remake, and all of that was motion captured for Japanese. So when I play it, you know, everything is dubbed in English, but you know it doesn't match. Mouths don't really match up, and you get to a point where you just kind of kind of ignore it. Like, you don't even look at their mouth when they're talking. You just kind of focus on the scene and listen to the words, but. And especially like if you've got Japanese dub, right, and you're going to be reading the subtitles, you're not going to be looking at the subtitles, so you're not going to be thinking too hard about the way the mouth is moving on some of these. That's a valid rebuttal. I get that, but you know, but the other stuff that they talked about, like the photo mode and stuff, it's like, I mean, maybe I'm in the minority, but like, I just don't care about any of that stuff. Like, I think it's cool. Like, I think it's necessary that they have it. I think it's awesome that they have it, but it's not something that you fucking put out on like the stage. You know, like I don't know. I think they should have, instead of spending 5 minutes of their 18-minute video, 5 or 7 minutes talking about photo mode and some Japanese film grain filter, right? They should have, you know, went deeper into how the combat works. Or,
well, I think we're going to get more from this game, and I think that's how they closed off the state of play. Is like, we even have more to show you leading up to the release. So I think we'll see more of that. I think they just want to lay the bedrock for this game. The thing about the photo mode is if a game doesn't have photo mode in 2020 and it's a beautiful game like that, then that's just a complete screw up by the developer, because a lot of people do use it, and a lot of people, I don't know. I just feel like a lot of people use photo mode. You get on Twitter, you get on Reddit. People are constantly posting photos of in-game stuff that they took, and they're real proud of their shots and the depth of field and all this stuff. I think the one thing that was really interesting that they did bring up is that you can pick, and this is something else I want to get to, is a soundtrack, but you can pick like a specific song for your photo, or your quick little, you can make like a GIF or like a still shot with a song involved. And I'm starting to wonder, are we going to be able to make on the PS5, if we can do custom backgrounds and themes right now, kind of like just a screen grab for the PS4, are they going to up that a level to allow us to include game audio for custom themes on the PS5? Is that going to be an option at rollout? Like, and you have to wonder, the Sucker Punch has information on the PS5, no doubt about it. So the fact that they've implemented that you can also capture specifically whatever song you want to pair with your shot and still have the particle effects happening and maybe catch like a short video clip. I wonder if there's going to be a way to just make a new theme easily out of the on the PS5 or something. It seemed like a pretty neat feature. So, I mean, the emotion thing, we see that in The Last of Us. You can change the people's expressions on the Uncharted 4. You can change their expressions. That's nothing new. Changing the different overlays, I suppose, would be what they're called, like whether it's the vignette or, having everything washed out or having these look like a 1980s Polaroid film. That's nothing new. But what they did, it seems like, put a lot of time into was that you can play the game like an old samurai movie. But I don't know if that filter is anything new, but the fact that you can use it to view their game as a samurai movie is just kind of the spin they put on their photo mode, I think, or their options. Like, when you beat Uncharted, you can get all of those unlockables with changing the way the gameplay works. You can make everything look 8-bit. You can make everything look, they could have come out and be like, yeah, you can make it look like you're playing on Nintendo. This is a cool feature. And it's like, well, okay, I get it. But like, I don't know anyone that actively uses that stuff. I'm sure there's a small percentage of people that use those different modes to play their game, but the fact that you can do a black and white or a noir or with me, I don't know if it puts a little extra film grain on the game or something while you play it, is kind of cool, considering it's kind of canon and it's kind of relevant to what the game is about. I see this more of a labor of love towards, samurai movies or ancient Japanese history and all of those interesting things that come along with that. And, so that's kind of nice. And it looks like they did put a lot of elbow grease into making this exactly the game that they wanted to make. So that's kind of cool. But I wasn't overly impressed with the photo mode stuff. I mean, it's cool, but you're right. Yeah, they probably spent too much time on it. Probably like we're spending too much time talking about how much time they spent on the photo mode.
Yeah, it's fine. I don't necessarily care all that much about it, especially since you can no longer post shit to Facebook on PS4. So, and that was really the only thing I ever posted stuff to. So I couldn't tell you the last time I actually shared content from my PS4. Is this game going to have multiplayer or no? I have no idea. I hope not.
They haven't talked about it at all. I hope not either.
I mean, they might be able to come up with some kind of like multiplayer kind of co-op mode or something where you could do things or whatever, but I don't think that that's their priority, which is good. I really wouldn't want, it seems like one of those games, kind of like The Witcher or something like that, or like Skyrim, for example, is like one of those games where it's like, or Fallout. Fallout's a good example. Like, part of the reason why I like Fallout is because I like taking my time and wandering around and, looking at stuff and getting immersed in the game and all that kind of stuff. With those deep RPGs, you get immersed in what you're doing. And the last thing that I fucking want is to see some Yahoo jumping around and shooting random stuff and
doing
have a guy run all over the place with their emotes and all this crap. It's like
jumping jacks in the middle of Tsushima.
Yeah. So like, the last thing I want for a game like this is fucking multiplayer. Unless it's something like a dedicated co-op system where it's like you and maybe one other person could be like,
one can be the ghost and one can be the samurai or something.
Yeah, something like that. Or, even if they had a mode, might be kind of cool because of the way the combat looks kind of interesting, like the samurai combat. It might be kind of interesting if they had like a dueling mode where you and like another person could fight each other in like samurai combat.
Oh yeah, they might have something like that. That might be kind of neat.
But we'll see because we don't really know anything about that. But it's possible that they might have talked about it, but I have no idea.
So I know that you said you were a little lukewarm about the game coming into it. Does this state of play make you? Is this a day one purchase for you now? Or are you going to wait for reviews still? I think last I talked, you said you were going to wait till reviews come out to get this thing. Where are you at on it now after this?
Honestly, like I'm a lot more interested in it after watching the video. I'll be honest. I am definitely more interested in playing the game. Just specifically because of the aesthetic and the world and the
story, dude. I think the story is going to be top notch.
Running around and, I've never been super drawn in by like samurai stuff and all that, jazz, but I have nothing against it, so I'm sure the story will be great. And just having another world to just kind of wander around. And I'm a little bit concerned that the game is going to be like 100 hours long, but hopefully
once you're done with The Last of Us 2, does it matter how long this game is? I mean, there's really nothing down the pike. I think the only thing down the pike is going to be Cyberpunk 2020. As far as like big games this year, right?
Yeah.
That we know of.
It's what we know of right now. I mean, there could be something else that, comes out. A
surprise,
or whatever. And
sneak attack.
It is possible. And if that's the case, then it's not really that big of a deal. It's just, I hate whenever games are too long because I get to a point where, it just becomes
a chore.
I don't even know if a chore is the right word, but you get to be a point where you're just sick of staring at the same game every day for a couple months,
Let me interject real quick. I think that this game, if it's long, and I know some people took issue with The Witcher 3 and took issue with Red Dead 2 because of the length, but if the side quests feel relevant and they still have some sort of an impact on the main story, and they just feel like they're baked into the world and the environment, and they feel genuine and not just put there just for extra stuff to do, that's going to make or break the length of this game. So if the game's really long and those side quests are just kind of redundant and it's rinse and repeat, and it's like, okay, you destroy the black powder keg ship. Okay, well, now we need you to destroy maybe a source of food for this group of people. Maybe you have to burn down rice fields. I have no idea. But it's like if you're just going and destroying supplies for maybe a base that you're trying to take out, and that's the purpose of a side, like multiple side missions. And then once you get all those down, then you can go attack the base. And it's like, okay, I get that. And then the next quest is the exact same thing. Like it's going to be a total fail as far as the length of the game. Like I don't want a long game where you just do the same stuff over and over and over and over. That gets really frustrating. And that's what I enjoyed so much about Red Dead Redemption 2 and The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is that all the side missions were different. Like they were all a little different. Now, granted, some of the random stuff that you ran into on Red Dead Redemption 2 would repeat itself. You'd see a guy stumbling to find his way back. You would run into that. Once you have 150 hours into the game, you're going to see some of that stuff again. Now, The Witcher 3, all of the side quests were legit quests that were side quests. Like they didn't pop any random stuff at you. Like they were on your map. You could go do them and you could choose not to, but they were interesting and they all had a lot of backstory. So what's interesting is I'm curious to see what they do as far as quest material. Is it going to be a lot of rinse and repeat stuff, or is it going to be all original and they put the time into it? They've been making this game for a long time. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, they have been making it for a long time. They've been making it since when they came out with First Light, which was, I don't know, 6 years ago, 5 years ago.
Long time ago.
So, that's a long time to be making a game, but it seems like they're making a really big game. So I have a hard time believing that it's going to be bad. I mean, it's probably going to be great, honestly, But I mean, Sucker Punch is a quality studio. They're used to making like these open world kind of games. Now they're typically in some kind of city with, you know, superheroes or whatever. But I think it's just going to be a way for them to sort of break out of their shell and flex their muscles a little bit. And if they pull, I think they'll be able to pull it off. And if they do, I think it'll be a big win for them. It'll show that they're not just they did like Sly Cooper and they did that for years.
Sly was great though, man.
Yeah, I agree. And then they did,
I love Sly.
And then they did, even, like if you think about like open world games, that's kind of been their MO. I mean, Sly Cooper, other than the first one, was pretty open. Like all the individual levels, I mean, were all really open. And then they got into Infamous, and those were all open worlds. And so, I think that it's going to be pretty good. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that they talked about in that video that I forgot about. But
I'm just adjusting my mic here real quick. Sorry, it's crooked. Go ahead.
The exploration honestly is the coolest looking part to me, and then the obviously
the setting.
The setting looks good, and then the combat looks interesting. I mean, it's one of those things where the way that the combat looks in the trailer, it looks like it could either be combat that I find really fulfilling, almost like a God of War kind of combat, where it's got a lot of impact and like, you know, a lot of like gravity to it, or it could be something, you know, that's like a little bit more like The Witcher or something like that, where it's like I don't really care as much for that kind of combat,
right?
So where it's like,
what if it's like Dark Souls, where like one hit and you die?
That'd be even fucking worse than The Witcher. In a game like that, I don't want to have to, you know,
get killed with one hit.
Too much like strategic thinking with, you know, I'm into doing the strategic thinking, but I don't want it to be one of those things like you haven't played Hellblade, but the combat gets very like challenging in terms of, you know, managing the enemies that are coming at you and dodging, and parrying and counterattacking and blocking and all this kind of stuff. And I don't have a problem with that kind of combat as long as it's not like oppressive. And I don't think that they would do that in this. It's not a Dark Souls game. I think that it would be a big mistake for them to do that. But
all the enemies died in one hit that they were fighting. They all died with one slash of the sword. So
well, it could be, you know, it could be very realistic. I mean, it could be that if he gets hit, you know, once or twice, then that's the end. And if that's the case, then, you know, at least there's a reason for it. I mean, they're being historically accurate with the game, but I don't know. I mean, I have to believe that they're going to find a middle ground. They're going to find a middle ground where people that don't typically like those, because they're not going to alienate a whole group of people that don't like the challenge of Dark Souls or something like that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. They got to be careful with doing that, because that's not everybody's cup of tea. In fact, it's less people's cup of tea than more.
I mean, if you think about a game like The Last of Us, right? I mean, if you play The Last of Us on easy, like it almost plays like an action adventure game,
right?
But if you play The Last of Us on survival mode, like it's fucking hard. And honestly,
they could have been playing on like a hard mode too when they demoed it.
Yeah. And honestly, like I really enjoyed The Last of Us on survival difficulty. I think it adds a lot to that game, but I don't think that it would add a lot to this game. The whole thing about The Last of Us is that you're trying to survive in this post-apocalyptic world where there are no resources and everything. Whereas like this game is just like you're a samurai running around killing Mongols and stuff. And it's like, okay, well, you know, I don't need the tone of scarcity or, you know, unnecessary challenge dropped on top of that, unless there's some story component to it that really makes it worthwhile.
Right. Well, moving on, let's move on. I think we've talked about that pretty well. We got a surprise announcement, although it wasn't a super surprise, because I did write Tony Hawk recently on Instagram. Of course, he didn't write me back, but I was like, hey man, I want to get one of my land. There's rumors that there's going to be a new Tony Hawk game coming out on top of what we were hit with. We got Tony Hawk 1 and 2 remaster coming out September 4th, 2020, which was kind of a surprise, but they always tend to do this before they go full bore. Maybe they're just gauging interest with this game, but there's some rumors circulating that a new Tony Hawk is in production right now. And that's what I wrote Tony about. I was like, hey, Hawkman, Birdman, hit me up. I want my band on your new game. And of course he didn't write back, but you never knew. I wrote the guy from Rancid a couple of times, and he actually wrote me back, which was awesome. So it just depends on who these guys are, and he probably has all of his direct messages blocked. Tony Hawk, the guy from Rancid, probably not. Yeah. But yeah, I've talked to Lars Fredrickson once or twice on Instagram now. For those guys who don't know, he plays in Rancid, and he's been in punk rock forever. And it was just stupid stuff. They were in Cleveland, and I wrote him because I was going to the show, and I said, hey man, if you guys ever ate at Melt, it's the place to go to. It's a great food chain, kind of originated out of Cleveland. There's a grilled cheese place. And he wrote back and he was like, yeah, man, that place is great. Thumbs up. See you at the show. And I was like, oh, dude, that's so awesome. And then he's a big G.I. Joe fan, which I found out about later. And he said something about he didn't know what to do on a Friday. And I wrote him and I said, you need to watch G.I. Joe on YouTube. Hasbro posted a lot of the old episodes. And he wrote back, he goes, oh, man, I'm totally into that. And I was like, oh, dude, Lars is writing me. So I was hoping maybe with Tony Hawk I would get a response, but got nothing from him. But Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 Remaster is coming out September 4th. Jake, I used to play these games all the time growing up.
Do they look good? I don't know if you watch any of the footage.
Looks great.
Really good. I'm actually blown away. It's almost hard to tell if it's a remaster or a remake because they did such a good job.
It's a remaster, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you because a lot of the animations look kind of similar, to the old ones. But
and how they've done a really good job, man, is like when you watched the Final Fantasy VII. Like the weird thing about that, this mic is going to kill me. I hope that's not recording that way. The weird thing about the Tony Hawk thing too is like, when I saw the remastered video, I was like, yeah, what's so great about that? And then they did a comparison and I was like, wow. And the weird thing about it is I 100%, I 100% thought that my memory is what the remaster, I thought that the game always looked like this. You know what I mean? Like that's how my memory remembers it. And that's how they've done a really good job is when you see a remaster and you're like, they didn't do anything new. But then you compare them and they've done a million things new and it just looks so fresh. Yeah, man, you're 100% right. Are you excited for this? What do you think the price point's going to be on that?
I have to imagine, it could be that they make it $60, but I could see this coming out at like $40 or something like that. And it would be, I'd fucking buy it. It looks awesome. I used to play Tony Hawk a lot and it, I would love to jump back into an arcade skate game, because there are no skateboarding games now, at least no good ones. And the one thing that I always found fun about Tony Hawk was that it was just so not necessarily over the top, but kind of over the top, where you could just kind of just do whatever you wanted when you were skating and do all these wild tricks and jump off the buildings and shit like that. And like
correctly.
Yeah. And it was easy to grind rails and shit. I think it was just you just pressed triangle to kind of hook up on the rail, and then you could kind of do whatever you wanted. It's not like, I also enjoyed the skate games, but they're a lot more difficult because the control is more realistic. You're using the sticks to do all the tricks, and you have to land just right on rails to kind of do your grinds and everything like that. And there's something to be said about that. And both games are kind of interesting, but
they're both good in their own right. Yeah.
One of the things that was awesome about one of my favorite things about Tony Hawk games was, especially like Tony Hawk 3 on PS2, was whenever you would unlock the skate videos, and you could watch the skate videos that you unlocked, which were really cool because they always had skate videos
ones and
So they had skate videos for like all the different
skate companies,
the skaters and the skate companies that you could kind of unlock. I'm super stoked about it. I'm totally interested in jumping back into these games and kind of getting an idea of how well they've aged.
The soundtrack was really good for them too.
Yeah, and I saw the soundtrack that they posted for Tony Hawk 1 and 2, and it looks like a lot of old punk rock.
It's the original. Between the two games, I looked this up. There were 26 songs between Tony Hawk 1 and Tony Hawk 2. I mean, Goldfinger, Millencolin. I don't even know the other bands. Dead Kennedys, I think, were on there.
Bad Religion, yeah.
Ramones, Bad Religion, a lot of punk rock. And then there were some really good rap songs, too. I think Public Enemy had a song on there. I think Anthrax had a song. But the thing is you know how these sound copyrights go. The new Tony Hawk soundtrack, instead of 26 songs, is only going to be 18 original songs. So whether or not they actually put more on top of the 18 songs that the original two games came with, I don't know. If they've contracted additional material to make the soundtracks a little longer. I'm not sure, but I mean, you still have the option to open Spotify and play songs while you're playing a game. So just put on your favorite punk rock or rap soundtrack and play the game while you listen to that. You could do that. But the two of the songs I know that aren't getting included was an Anthrax song and a Public Enemy song. I don't know what the other 5 are or 6. I can't do math right now. It would be 8. What are the other 8 songs? So, no, it's 8. Yeah, no. Yeah, there's 8 that are missing, right? So there'd be six songs remaining that I'm not sure which ones are getting cut out of those 6. But I know the Goldfinger song, Superman Made It, which is a great song. I remember that was always seemed to be like the first song that would kick on when I played Tony Hawk. Well, here I am doing everything I can. Holding on to what I am, pretending I'm a Superman. Remember that song? It was so good, dude. And then, yeah, dude, so good. Speaking of Goldfinger, dude, they're doing COVID-19 live performances on YouTube that sound phenomenal because they're singing John.
They did that one. They did not do that one. I think I saw it.
They did, yeah. He's a huge music producer now, and he's just has a fantastic recording studio. So the weird thing about that is the I think the bass player for MXPX is playing on those live videos with Goldfinger. I don't know if he's a permanent member now or not, but they sound great. Those videos sound phenomenal. So anyways, they did that. And I think they did 99 Red Balloons, which is a cover. I don't know what else they did. I'm talking about Goldfinger, but one of my favorite tracks on there is No Cigar by I think it's Millencolin. That's one of my favorite songs from back in the day, punk rock. But yeah, I'm excited for the game too, Jake. I think it's got a lot to offer. Did you happen to catch the Unreal Engine 5 debut that they did?
I watched a little bit of it, but I didn't watch a ton. I mean, it's kind of like Unreal Engine. Whenever they announce a new Unreal Engine, it's kind of just one of those things where it's like, you know, it's kind of like you expect it to make your mouth water, like when you're playing it, when you're like watching it, and then it's like, yeah, it looks cool. I mean, I don't know what the game is that they were kind of showing.
They created a fake game to run in real time to show you what it can do. Now, the interesting thing about it, Jake, I don't know if you picked up on this, is that it was being captured directly on a PS5 dev kit. So what you were watching essentially is the first processing power that we've been able to witness from a PS5.
Now, the one thing is that one of the things I intended to do, but I completely forgot about, was to watch that demo, or at least a part of it.
Yeah.
Stream that in high def. Because like when I watched it, I didn't watch it in high def because it was like on my phone or something like that. And so you don't really get the gravity of everything they're talking about with like all the individual like pixels and all that stuff that they're not pixels. They're talking about the little polygons or triangles, whatever the hell they're talking about. You don't really get the gravity of all that in the 4K textures and all that kind of stuff. You don't really get the gravity unless you actually watch it in high def or 4K.
Yeah, I watched it on my Mac. I have a 5K here. So, dude, it looked really, really stunning. Like it was incredible. And it said like it was running at 30 frames a second. Well, that's to be, I don't know, expected when you're processing the way that this thing was processing. I mean, it looked really good. And what was interesting was I want to say, I don't know who it was, but it might have been Unreal themselves or whoever was responsible for making that game demo or whatever. They said that the PlayStation 5, the storage the storage structure of how they're storing their information. They said it's like next level. Like it can rival that of the highest end PCs right now.
Yeah.
Which is just exciting to hear. But seeing that demo, dude, was really, 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 really relieving. I think Sony probably already hit it out of the park, and that's why they're not flexing anything right now. They're just going to let these things, it's just going to naturally happen. I hope. It reinstilled my faith in what the PS5 might be, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think that, it's going to be great. I mean, people that talk about like their teraflops or whatever at face value, and if you actually look at articles where it's people that actually know a thing or two about how processing works and like video game makers, like developers and stuff, it's not so like teraflops to teraflops, whatever the fuck that even means, is not a one-to-one comparison. It's everything else about how the game or the hardware stores information, can recall information, the RAM that it uses, all that kind of stuff plays a role in performance in terms of, how many like the kind of textures you can have on the screen at once. Like just because you don't have the best video card, let's say, but if you have like freaking super great RAM and super great hard drive and everything like that, you can load those textures a lot faster, which would increase your frame rates. So it's interesting. Like, they say the Xbox One X or Series X or whatever the hell it's going to be, the Xbox Series X is going to be the most powerful console in the world when it comes out. And that's probably technically true for doing like raw computing tasks. Right. But I don't know how that compares
to gaming,
to the real world whenever you're talking about load times and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but yeah, I'm excited for the PS5. I mean, it's one of those things where it's just like, I'm trying not to get too excited about it or even think about it really until we know more information and when it's coming out. And, because then it's like, I got to worry about getting my pre-order in and all that kind of stuff. But
sure,
it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, whatever it is, I'm going to buy it. It doesn't really matter unless they like announce it and it's just like a big pile of shit for some reason, which I can't believe. Like, there's no reason I wouldn't buy it.
Right. So I'm with you 100%.
Worst case scenario, like if I didn't have any money or something like that, then I might, just keep my PS4 for a while and then buy the PS5. But there's going to be too many probably exclusive games I'm going to want to play on it. So I'm, pretty much ready.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to the show topic real quick. We don't have to spend a whole lot of time on this. We're clocking in around an hour right now. Try to keep our shows around an hour and a half. But Jake and I had talked about last episode that we were going to try to come up with some sort of show topic to kind of keep the podcast interesting. And this is kind of based on the age-old, as kids, you were like, well, if you're stuck on an island, you could only pick, I don't know, so many of this. If you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be? Or, so this kind of boils down to that whole idea. Like, it's a hypothetical situation question. Ours was if I had asked Jake, like, so if we were stuck on an island, what 5 games, and you're only allowed 5, would you bring with you? Or would you choose to be stuck on an island with to play for till the end of your days indefinitely? And it was actually a way more difficult question than I thought it was going to be, Jake. At first, I thought like 5 would be more than enough to pick like some of my favorite games. But then I started getting into – and if listeners, if you guys have 5 games that you would like to include or chime in about, feel free to write us. We do have an email address. It's psthisisawesome@gmail.com. Right into the show. I'd be curious to hear what you guys would pick for this. But – Jake, pragmatically, like how did you go about picking your 5 games? Like before we get into the games themselves.
So I decided that I was going to pick based on diversity, based on replayability, and based on amount of content. I guess, is kind of
Right.
like the three things that I looked at. And and I guess the overarching thing is like, is it a game that I consistently want to come back to?
Right.
Even not being on an island. So that is like kind of what I was sort of looking at.
Okay. Well, yeah, similar to you, I told myself that I wanted one game that was that involved music one way or another, because if I'm on an island by myself, then the chances are like I'm not going to have a guitar, I'm not going to have a way to listen to music. So I wanted a game that had either the ability to create music or to enjoy music or to, something. So I needed to have a music centered game. I also now this might be cheating a little bit, but I don't think it is. I wanted to have a game that made me feel like I wasn't on an island. So I wanted to use one of my spots for a VR game, which is kind of weird. Maybe you did the same thing. And then I also cheated, and instead of just picking like one game, we now know that they offer collections that are on one disc. I counted that as a game. And then I wanted like you said, like maybe like a big game that had just an indefinite amount of content. And then I was kind of throwing the hat around about whether or not I wanted to use a sim game or not, because I could sit and just watch something and build something over time, which might be kind of interesting, while I'm stuck on an island. But I'm gonna do one thing. I'm gonna try to guess one game that is on your list. Now you don't have to tell me right now if I'm right or wrong. I don't want you to try to guess one game that's on mine. I'm gonna say that you probably put on your list Skyrim.
Yep.
You did? All right. I figured you did. You want to take a stab at one of mine?
I don't know. I mean, because it's one of those things where I don't know if you did this or not, but I specifically did not put any of the Naughty Dog games on my list.
Oh, interesting. No, I did not try to avoid that.
Yeah. So I kind of figured you'd probably pick like the Nathan Drake collection.
Yeah, that's on my list.
Because if I was going to pick any of the Naughty Dog games, it would be like if I was going to pick any Sony first party game or any Sony exclusive game, it would be the Nathan Drake collection, just because there's 3 games. All of them are great. The story is great. You can kind of add challenge to them. They have all the extra modes
pretty
now.
Strong.
What's that?
Replayability is pretty strong on those.
Yeah. But I kind of figured that you were gonna go there, so I didn't put it on there. But I
interesting.
But I did have it on my list as like an honorable mention in case you didn't pick it.
Yeah, if we're gonna do honorable mentions, I've got 2 I'm gonna throw in. But let's just I didn't order my list in any specific order. Do you have an order to your list?
No, I just kind of made a list and started checking things off and deciding what I wanted.
I'm going to guess. I don't. We should. I want to guess another one of yours, but I'm not gonna guess.
Well, why don't you just? I mean, I don't know. Why don't you just kind of say what game you?
All right,
pick your first game. I mean, if you want to just do the Nathan Drake collection, and then I'll do Skyrim because we already brought him up, and then we'll go from there.
So Nathan Drake collection was on my list for sure, and for all the reasons you said why. It's a fabulous story. It's an action adventure. It's got, you're getting 3 games at the cost of 1, which was a huge advantage. And I thought it was a little bit like cheating. But at the same time, it's not, because it is all on one disc, and it's a thing that's in existence. We did try to make sure that all these games are playable on PlayStation. They didn't have to be PlayStation exclusives. But you guys know, as well as everybody else, that I'm a huge Naughty Dog fan, and it would almost be a crime for me not to include this on my collection for all the reasons Jake said. He pretty much gave my answer away when he talked about why he thought it would be on my list. He knows me well enough, and he clearly had the same thought about it, but just intentionally left it off his list because he figured it would be brought up on my list. So, all right, Jake, you pick Skyrim. What about Skyrim? What is it?
So Skyrim, even though it's a little bit long in the tooth at this point, is just, I mean, I've talked about it on the podcast before, but that game is kind of like comfort food for me. Mm-hmm. There's something about it where I'm always kind of able to just, if I don't really know what I want to play, or if it's like, in the wintertime when it's really cold and I've kind of feeling down or something like that, I can always rely on that game to just kind of like pop it in and start a new character and just kind of go bananas in that world.
Yeah.
Basically, the only thing that's annoying at this point is I've played the opening sequence of the game so many fucking times that I just wish I could skip it. And that would actually be Bethesda, if you're listening, in the next Elder Scrolls game, make it so that once you beat the game, you can skip the opening sequence.
That's genius.
Because there are a lot of people that just replay these games over and over and over again. And it, because the thing about it is, Skyrim is like you can make your character whatever the hell you want. So there's almost an infinite number of combinations that you can do to kind of to play the game how you want. And, if you play it on PC, you can actually do even more with mods and all that kind of stuff. But we're talking specifically about PlayStation, and there are mods on PlayStation for Skyrim, but, I don't really dive into that too much. I'm just totally, interested in the original game. It's just the ability to kind of explore a world, kind of like you were saying with the VR game. It's like the ability to explore a world that is not your own, that kind of like, makes you think of a place you might, makes you think of a place that you might want to be, like someplace beautiful, and even if it's dangerous, you know what I mean? So, so that's kind of why I picked Skyrim. I mean, it's just
a good
one of those
choice.
Infinitely replayable games for me. And there's like, even the base game, if you just play one character, there's over 300 hours of content. So
I've never played it.
Yeah. So if you were to imagine just that plus, more characters, dude, I've played the game so many times and I still haven't done everything in the game. So now there's a lot of stuff I've done multiple times, but anyway, go ahead.
Right. Man, I'm going to be 100% honest. This list was way harder than it needed to be. I wanted an open world game where my next game is an open world game. I wanted, and honestly, I have two open world games on my list because they're both significantly different enough. And when you're talking about content and you're talking about having tons of opportunity for exploration and finding hidden secrets and doing this and doing that, and also matched with a really good story, I don't know that any games out there really compare as far as vastness, maybe with the exception of Skyrim, and I've not played Skyrim, with The Witcher Wild Hunt. You guys know I love this game, and there's something about this game, and I've talked about the side quests, and I've talked in the fact that The Witcher Wild Hunt also has a new game plus adds so much more to it. There's all these different pieces of armor. There's all these different crafting systems. You are Geralt of Rivia, and you also get to play, spoiler, as Ciri a little bit. But the problem with this game is that I haven't revisited it because I'm afraid of what will happen to me if I do. Like, I'm just going to get lost in this game again. I started it off, and I just absolutely love the DLC that comes with it. So it would be the game of the game of the year edition, or the collector's edition, which has all the expansions as well, might I add. But yeah, so that would be my second game, man. The world is enormous. I've probably put 150 plus hours in the game just to beat it. And I do think I did play every single side mission. I didn't win every side mission or every side quest. Like some of them went astray. There's dialogue options where you get to choose different paths in a weird way. There are multiple endings to the game. Like I said, New Game Plus, it has a very, very difficult mode if you want to pick it. I forget what it's called. I think it's called Death March or something, where it's like really, really hard. I think I could get lost in this game for a very, very long time. And keep in mind, when you're on the island, you're still like foraging for wood and berries and food and stuff. So you're not going to just be playing a video game endlessly. So I think it's going to offer me enough opportunity and variation that I think this game would be a good pick for me. So I went with Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, Collector's Edition. Jake, what's your next one?
That's a good choice. I mean, I like The Witcher a lot. And I think if I was going for something that was, if I wanted a fantasy game that was truly, and I wanted to have like something that was just truly great as far as like story and feel and stuff like that, the Wild Hunt would be a great option. So my next game on the list is, because I said I wanted to have diversity. I wanted to have a first person shooter on my list.
Ooh.
And so I picked, just for something to just let me just vent some rage. I picked Doom for, and probably specifically Doom Eternal. Now there is stuff about the original Doom from 2016 that I like more about Doom Eternal, but I think as far as like something that, I'm going to just play over and over again and like master and just, totally, I don't know, rip and tear, to use the nomenclature from the game, but like, it's so good. It's so fast. It makes you feel so powerful, and now it makes you feel pretty weak at points too. But like it's a first person shooter that, just has so much weight and speed to it that it's awesome. I know you haven't played it, but you played the original Doom, I think, right?
The original remake.
Yeah.
From
2016.
Yep, I liked it a lot.
Yeah, so like Doom Eternal is basically that, but just kind of cranked up to 11.
Dude, that's awesome.
And they added some arcadey features to it and all this kind of stuff. Now, one of the things they did take out of Doom Eternal that I kind of liked about Doom, the original Doom from 2016, and this would be kind of a check for playing. This would be one of the things that I would actually want the original Doom 2016 for, is that Doom 2016 had the snap map mode, which allowed you to kind of make levels and encounters and missions and all that kind of stuff.
Level creator.
It had a level creator that was actually really, really deep. So
and that would offer tons of replayability.
Right. So like you could kind of make your own levels and everything like that.
That's really smart.
So like if we're talking about if Snap Map was not on the table, I would pick Doom Eternal.
Gotcha.
But part of me thinks that it would be kind of awesome to have the Snap Map mode in Doom 2016, just to be able to, like, I'm sitting on this island, I got nothing to do but try and survive, and it's like, well, maybe I can make some Doom levels and try and beat them. You know what I mean?
Make them better than the makers themselves, because you have eternity now to sit on an island.
Well, at least until I fucking die of malaria or whatever.
You could make the next Doom. Yeah, you could make Doom 4 for yourself, Doom 5, and just have. And then if you ever get rescued, just go straight to id Software and be like, hey, guys, by the way, I've got your next 2 games for you right here. That'd be awesome. That's a great choice, man. 100% am with you. I didn't pick a first-person shooter, but I did pick a first-person VR game, which they all are. Well, not all, most of them are. So my next game for VR, and I figure if I'm on an island, the normal pleasantries of living in society are going to be away from me. And one of the things I really like to do in real life sometimes to kind of cool my head off or just kind of feel free is to get in my car and drive around, right? So it was a toss-up between 2 VR games. I'll tell you what I picked and why I picked it, and then I'll tell you the other option. So the game I picked was Wipeout VR, which seems like a crazy out of left field game, but there are so many. So not only does this game act as a game that, like, over time I think you could master, because there's certain every race you have to get under a certain time, right? There's also combat modes where you battle on not even necessarily online, because we're not even saying that there is online capabilities on the island, but if there were, you could battle real people, but if not, you battle AI bots and stuff. But this game in VR is just beautiful. It runs smooth. I can feel like I'm in a car flying around a track. I think it would be a good game, like between preparing my fish that I caught, and while it's cooking over the fire and eating, I could jump into the VR world and race around in this awesome imaginary track that lets me go upside down and move faster than the wind and just feel like I'm out there. The other, and there's score chasing in this game too. So you can also have your ghost car. So in VR, like, you can race yourself. So it's one of those games that's going to push yourself. And I think it would be fun to, like, master every track. Now, Jake, I'm telling you, there are so many different tracks in Wipeout VR. So it's the Wipeout collection is what it is. And it's all the different 2048, 2045, whatever. It's all those games wrapped into one game. And it is so much fun. and it's just fun. But my other game for VR that I was gonna maybe pick was gonna be Drive Club VR, because that's a little more realistic, and I could drive along the coast of an ocean, or I could drive in a nighttime city with the lights out, with the city lights, and feel like I'm back in society. But I think Wipeout VR takes the cake there, just because of content. I think there's more content and more variableness to it. But that was my VR game, just because I wanted to feel like I was not where I was. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
I could totally understand, wanting to do the VR thing for sure. I mean, it would get you off the island, I guess, more or less for
sanity's sake.
For sanity's sake, yeah.
All right, Jake, what's your third game?
So my third game is going to be Shovel Knight. And the reason why I picked that is specifically because I can't pick Super Mario World. There's so many games that I would have picked that I can't put on this list because they're on PC or they're on Nintendo or whatever.
But this is a PlayStation podcast.
And we're talking about PlayStation games, or games available on PlayStation.
Right.
So I'm not saying that Shovel Knight is Mario, but it's got that same kind of feeling surrounding it, where it's like the levels are they're kind of platformers, and they're a little bit challenging, and you can kind of play them over and over again to kind of get better at them and master them. And especially with all the DLC like Spectre Knight, and I didn't play the Plague Knight one. And then I guess King of Cards I don't know if it came out or not, but there's like the final piece of DLC for it, kind of like adds story to it. And like I said, I mean, it's not like a direct comparison. I would still, I would much rather have like a Super Mario World, but
right.
This we don't really have games like that on PlayStation. Like there is no Super Mario analog on PlayStation.
No, I don't know what Richard's probably the closest thing.
Not even close. So I would pick Shovel Knight just because it's one of those games that gives me that same it's from that same period. It's got that same, just totally locked in platforming controls.
It's tight control. The aesthetics there.
Yeah.
The music.
It's really charming. The music's really cool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I like it, man. So, the last two were really, really hard. And as you were talking, I actually changed the one. So I bumped one down to the honorable mention, and I'm going for another open world game, just in case The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt doesn't fulfill it for me. Let's say I get through every single thing in The Witcher 3. There's new game plus Death March, everything, and then what do? You're kind of bored of it. Well, then you break out Red Dead Redemption 2. So Red Dead Redemption 2 is on my list now. It wasn't going to be this. I'll tell you what it was later. For the exact same reason that I picked The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Red Dead Redemption 2, huge map. I could probably spend months just trying to hunt every single animal, or trying to find, and Rockstar's really good at hiding stuff like UFO stuff. I haven't looked up any of the cheats. There's buried treasure I could go try to find. I could make a whole day of trying to find buried treasure in this game. It was on my list originally. I took it off. I replaced it with something else. And while you were talking, I put it back on and bumped the other thing out. So Red Dead Redemption 2, man, I don't think that you can get much of an argument out of that one. The only thing that probably I wouldn't do as much in this game is probably play the story. Like I would just enjoy the open world for what it was and forget the story, because the story was good. Granted, it was a good story, but I feel like what I enjoyed most about Red Dead Redemption 2 was just the openness in the map, really, honestly, and the living environments in that game. I don't know. Looking back at it, the story was good. But if I put it on this list, I'm putting it on the list mainly just so I could have a playground and just screw around on.
Yeah, I contemplated Red Dead Redemption 2. It's a really great game. I think, honestly, the biggest reason why I didn't pick it is because I'm not 100% interested in the cowboy aesthetic. Right. But if it was like Red Dead Redemption 2, just being able to go around that world and do the stuff in that world, I totally agree with you. That's a great option for just killing countless hours, just wandering around. I mean, even just wandering around and just looking at the environment, it's gorgeous.
Yeah. That's a big part of it for me. I mean, I want to say you have beautiful creeks, lakes, you have beautiful sunsets, you have big wheat fields, you have just random animals and birds, and you get binoculars and buried treasure. And man, it just seems, and there's some comic relief if you were to play the game. There are funny things that happen in it. And again, you get to make decisions in this game as well that impact the people around you. So you would have a little bit of that social interaction. Jake, what's your fourth game?
So my fourth game is gonna be Minecraft. And I picked it because it's literally an endless game. Yeah. You can do whatever you want in that game. I mean, you could, like, if I got infinitely bored on this island and I was like, okay, I want to make a fully functional, like, city with automated tram systems and lights in all the buildings with switches, and you could do it. I mean, you could do whatever you want. Like, it's so interesting and open-ended to be able to kind of build these types of things in this game that, I kind of had to pick it as one of those games to kind of use as a way to get that creative outlet kind of taken care of. Use it as an outlet for creativity while you're on the island, and you're just sitting there thinking about, well, what the fuck, right? What would I want to do with my life or whatever, and then just kind of build it in the game. It's not going to be exactly the same or whatever, but there's just a level of, and even, for as shitty as the graphics are in that game, there's a level of exploration where you can kind of like find, when you're mining, you can find these great like underground chasms and like lava and all this shit. And it's, I haven't played it a ton. I've probably put maybe in my whole life, maybe between 20 and 30 hours into Minecraft. But I just know, like, as a game that I would want to have on an island that, needed to last me for the rest of my life, it checks a lot of boxes. So yeah, that's my game. I don't know if you have much experience with Minecraft, but
I've never played it, or if I had, it probably would make my list too, but I'm just so ignorant about Minecraft that I absolutely have no idea. I have no idea what the game is or how it works. And I know there's a lot of creating and building. And that was something that really appealed to me with one of these games. And so far I don't have anything like that. So my last game, Jake, and man, this was tough. This was really tough for me because I like to do that kind of thing, but I have very limited, like I said, I messed around with City Skylines recently. It was on my list and I've only got like 2 hours into it because I just feel like my creative side would need something like that. But more importantly with me, my creative side needs to be musical. Like, I need to make music. I know I'm not going to have a guitar. I'm not going to have any way to do music. So I wanted to have a game where I could actually create music. And the options are very limited in the PlayStation universe of how, what can you do to make music? So I boiled it down to 3 options. And then I was like, well, maybe I don't need to make music. Maybe if I just have access to music where I can listen to music, that might suffice. But I think it would just get annoying only having access to like 80 songs for the rest of your life. Like, I think it would wear out its welcome. Like, it would be nice at first, but it would just get kind of old. So I needed to go with a game that would permit me to create music. And there were none. So this isn't even an honorable mention, but so my options pretty much, as far as I could recall or figure out, were Little Big Planet, because I know you can make songs in that, or Sound Shapes.
Yeah.
I don't know how else you can make music. Like, it would have to be. So my last pick was Sound Shapes, because not only is it a level creator and you can create infinite levels in that game, You also would have the ability while you're creating levels to write music. So that was my 5th game, and it seems so lame, but I just needed to have some sort of way. I mean, the other option would be to get like a Guitar Hero game with all the track packs. That way I could just listen to music. You know what I mean? But I think it would just get old.
Yeah. I don't know if this is a cop out or not, but a good option for you would be like a Rocksmith or something like that. You'd have to have a real guitar for that. But and maybe if you had a real guitar, you would need a game.
I wouldn't want the game to do it. Yeah.
Right. I think Sound Shapes is a great game. So I think that it's especially if you're playing it on the Vita or something, making those levels and stuff, it's really cool. I kind of want to go back and listen to that episode where we put the songs from our Sound Shapes level on it. I don't even remember
what episode
what it sounded like or anything. I think Sound Shapes is a great choice.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. And I kind of want to guess at your last game. Do you mind me taking a stab?
Yeah, you're not going to get it, but go ahead.
All right. Well, I figured you were going to go the route of procedurally generated game, a game that gives you infinite dungeons and stuff. So I was going to say Diablo 3, but
Diablo 3 is on my list, but it's not what I ended up picking for my last game, because Diablo, I kind of figured like that, that void might be filled at least partially by Skyrim. They're not really the same game, but they play very differently. But like that whole fantasy element, killing things and finding better gear and all that kind of stuff, it's way better in Diablo. But I kind of thought, well, if I got Skyrim, do I really want Diablo too? So Diablo as well.
Yeah.
So I actually kind of went sideways a little bit, and I may end up regretting this decision, but I'm actually going to be on the island. But I thought, if I'm on this island, I'm not going to be able to play hockey. Oh. So what if I took one of the EA Sports NHL games with me?
Yeah.
So if you think about it, you've got the build a player mode, the career mode, all that shit you have in the show and stuff.
I didn't think about a sport game.
I could go through and basically kind of live my play my hockey. I'd have to do it obviously within a video game.
You could have a season every year.
Yeah, but at least I would get some exposure to it, even if it's not the same.
I should have went MLB The Show. I didn't. It's too late. I'm already on the island.
Yeah. So
I'm jealous that you have NHL and I don't have a sports game.
So
damn it.
And that's coming from somebody who doesn't really play the NHL games all that much. I mean, I think I only have one of them in my library right now. I think it's 2016 or 2017. But it's something that if I didn't have much else to do and I had no access to hockey and I was getting kind of, anxious about it, it would be something I'd really be interested in. Yeah,
you don't regret that decision, because I regret not having MLB The Show.
Yeah,
already I regret it. Oh well.
Now, do you want to list a couple of your honorable mentions? Because I have a few that I would bring up.
Well, let's go through the 10 real quick. A recap. I'm going to name my 5. You name your 5, so the listeners can keep track of the 10 games that are probably best suited to be stuck on an island with, according to us. My list was the Uncharted Nathan Drake collection, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt Game of the Year with all the expansions, Wipeout VR, Sound Shapes, and Red Dead Redemption 2. Jake, what were yours?
Mine were Skyrim, Doom Eternal, Shovel Knight, Minecraft, and one of the EA Sports NHL games. Whatever the most recent one is, I guess.
That's a great list of games.
I think it's a pretty solid list. If somebody had that library sitting on an island, I mean, just between the Witcher, Red Dead, and Skyrim, there's 2,000 hours of gaming right there.
Potentially, yeah. And even after you accomplish everything, you can make up your own goals. I need to kill 10 grizzly bears in a row without dying, and just try to do that.
Yeah, and there's quite a few endless games on there too. You're talking about your creative games like Minecraft and Sound Shapes, and I think that there's a lot to to go with there. Now there is some stuff that we didn't touch on, like there's no JRPGs on the list or anything. I actually contemplated putting Final Fantasy VII on my list, but it fell out in the first cutting phase. So I just didn't think that it would be something I'd want to replay over and over again.
Well, the only honorable mentions that I have, Jake, is a game I've never played because I couldn't put it on the list. I've never played it. And that game was Dreams. Yeah. Because of the infinite content that apparently it has. The other two games that I had were score chasing games, just because I just felt like it would be really fun. But Wipeout VR kind of took the score chasing game lead because of the VR aspect and because of the just because, mainly the VR thing. So the other two games that I had, and maybe a good replacement of Wipeout VR might have been Tetris Effect VR, but I didn't. But I went with Tetris as an honorable mention. It's a timeless game, and I feel like you could just play it forever. You could always go back to it, maybe not really get bored of it. The other game was going to be Resogun, because that's a score chasing game that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I had Resogun on my list as a honorable mention for sure, because I was absolutely hooked on that game when it first came out, and I could see myself getting back into it, especially now, with all the updates and everything. I think you can build your own ships and do all this kind of crazy. That's crazy,
man. So what were your honorables? So you had Resogun on there?
I had Resogun, and I also had we had talked about Diablo earlier. But the only other two that I had on there were the BioShock collection and Grand Theft Auto 5. Mostly because Grand Theft Auto 5 is you need a racing game? We got a racing game. You need a shooting game? We got a shooting game. All that stuff is basically in GTA 5.
Right. You want to build a condominium? You can build a condominium.
Yeah. You want to fly planes? You want to do crime? All that stuff is. You want to play tennis? All that stuff is in the game.
You want to bowl?
Yeah. Grand Theft Auto 5, if it wasn't for the fact that I'm, I enjoy the game, but it's not, my passion, I would probably play any one of these other games on my list before I would pick up Grand Theft Auto 5.
Yeah.
And then I also had just as an honorable mention, something like Bloodborne or Neo. If you've got infinite time, you could literally master that game.
A really difficult game.
But it might just be I don't give a fuck if I'm on an island, I'm dying of sunburn, I'm not playing Bloodborne anymore.
I'm not going to sit here in the heat, in the sun, dripping, getting demolished by the first boss in Neo. Yeah. Right.
So, and the other game that I had is that it was cut early too, was Everybody's Golf.
Oh yeah, VR.
Yeah.
Or no.
It doesn't even have to be VR. Just I just get a kick out of those kind of arcadey golf games. I just think
they are fun.
I think they're fun. And, it kind of ties into the whole sports game thing. Obviously you get a lot more out of something like NHL or MLB The Show. But, something that's just kind of fun, and it could be as challenging as you want, really. What would be awesome is if Everybody's Golf had a fucking course creator. That would be really cool. And maybe they do have something like that. I don't know, but I've never seen one.
Another thing that I was thinking about, which would be really good for VR, would be literally a flight simulator where there's no mission. You just get in the air and you just fly around indefinitely with no boundaries. You don't get off a map. You just keep going, and there's different things to look at. That would be awesome. But,
it would be cool. And you know what I didn't even think about that I can't believe I didn't think about was No Man's Sky.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's VR. Yeah, I didn't think about that either. Have you tried that in VR yet?
I haven't. I installed it months ago, but I never tried it.
I'm going to go install it after the podcast. Well, Jake, I don't want to keep the listeners on the hook for too much longer. We're an hour and a half. Do you have anything else you want to talk about, or you want to close it out?
No, I'm good. I thought that was a pretty good conversation.
Yeah, we had a great episode. We're going to try to stay with this kind of a format and maybe give you some more lists of things as we unveil the news. I know that the drop did happen. You guys can always check out what games come out on the PlayStation blog. It's blog.us.playstation.com. They can tell you about all the different games coming out. I was looking through it briefly. They do have a putt-putt game. It looks like golf with your friends. It's a putt-putt game, which is kind of, Gorn was like a VR game coming out. I don't know what some of these are. Maneater. because we've talked about them on previous shows. The third remastered of Saints Row, which I don't even understand that. Superhero X, Trailmakers, The Wonderful 101. Yeah, nothing that really grabs my eye. So, the next big thing we're probably going to get is going to be The Last of Us 2 here. But anyways, that's all I got. You guys can check out the list on there. Don't forget to write the show at pssisawesome.com or pssisawesome@gmail.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/pssisawesome. Go make friends with us on there. I'm going to start putting a little more content up on the YouTube channel as much as I can and try to keep it high quality like the podcast. Thanks again for listening, guys. So, like Ghost of Tsushima, Grand Theft Auto, and Guitar Hero.
P.S.
This is awesome.